Hello, well we're here with Ann Christi, and a couple of years ago she bought a 9-gem bangle from Astro Gems, and now she's been trying out the latest power bangle, wearing it, and we'd like to hear some of her stories and experience.
Actually, I'd like to go back a little further than just, what, a week ago, I believe it was, when I came here several months ago and Nick was working on the power bangle or meditation bangle. And I thought, oh my gosh, is that gaudy or what? And really thought it was way over the top. And I kept saying, well, that's really nice. Can you make it smaller? Which a lot of people do. You know, they say, oh, I really like it, but can you make it smaller? But Nick got into the reasons why it had to be this size, and it made a lot of sense. So when I came this time, both Karen and Nick had been telling me a lot of stories, and I saw some of the videos of some of the people have been using the bangle and some of their amazing results. So I thought, okay, yeah, I'd like to try it when it was offered. I was grateful that Karen slipped it on me, and I thought, well, I can always hide it, right? I can hide it under something. And I didn't feel anything. And Karen kept asking me, well, do you feel anything? Do you feel anything? And I felt really guilty because I didn't feel anything. And so Nick explained that because I had already had the astrological bangle, that I've integrated some of that energy and maybe I wouldn't feel it as much. So that made sense, and I thought, okay, well, I just saved myself some money because I don't need this. And I was at my daughter's house and they were teasing me about this rather large bracelet, and of course I reminded them when we were all in ISIS together in the temple, this was common, we had 12 of these. So they all laughed and carried on, and I said, well, to my daughter, why don't you try it on? And she did, and was astounded immediately at the results. She said,
from ridicule to
right, from oh my God, from awful to oh my God. And then she said, but my arm's falling asleep. And so it was like, well, I didn't have any of those experiences, so I can relate. She goes, my arm is numb. And then Christine, my daughter, took it and tried it on, and she says, well, my arm is tingling, like a lot. So that was interesting. And then she said her arm went kind of on the numb side. So Alicia wouldn't give it back to me. She says, well, let me try it for a while. And I'm thinking, oh, good, that's a good excuse to get rid of it and not have to tell Nick and Karen that I just don't really even want this because I'm not feeling the results. So Alicia, I come back here, Alicia's wearing the bangle, and Karen notices I don't have my bangle on. And so I explained to her that Alicia's wearing it for a while, and she goes, you can't be without a bangle. And I'm thinking, oh God, she slips a bangle right on my arm. And I'm thinking, okay, fine, I'm leaving in a few days, and I'll just give it back and tell them, well, thanks anyway, but I don't think I need this. And, but, I like the science behind it, and I like the research, Nick, you had done on it. I mean, it was, there's a lot of, intuitive aspects to this that you just knew.
I like to use the word empirical data, looking at people's testimonial observations, because there's so many people who claim intuitive faculties with gemstones. It really becomes this kind of nebulous hodgepodge of supposition, and with a lot of fallacy, and quite a few people, I hate to say it, but I'd call them legends in their own minds. And so whenever I'm categorized as being intuitive, it's kind of a cop-out to the scientific model. I mean, people's consciousness measures consciousness, and they measure reactions in their sensory field at least. And people are intelligent very often, so they're going to observe a shift or a change and document it and note it in a diary or whatever. And the more feedback you get, the more you see patterns of commonality, the more you get a handle on how to change things and alter things and improve things and experiment with things. And that's kind of how I like to be viewed as approaching multi-gem bangles after 25 years, definitely. Don't have a lot of time for a lot of the books that are written that look like kind of cookbooks, as it were. But sorry, I'll get back.
No, it's a good point, because you are looking at the scientific and you are tapping into the intuitive.
Well, listening to people, that's huge.
Right.
That's really huge. Yeah. And they don't confer with each other, and they don't have ordained ideas, and so there's a real unique characteristic when I hear common threads of different feedback. So it's very interesting and it's something to take note of.
Right.
But back to you.
No, and so the thing that I noticed in that night is suddenly I had this huge impulse to go meditate. And I mean, it was like I had to do it then. So I went into my room and assumed the position and the pose and took like 1 or 2 deep breaths and immediately went into this amazing state of bliss. I mean, just, it's like if you're having this incredible party and you want to invite everyone because the energy is so incredible and so blissful and euphoric is what it was, really. But you don't want to leave that space. So you're not going to run out in the hall to get those people to join your party because you cannot leave for 1 second.
Kind of goes away quickly.
Yeah. So it was a place that I ended up when I came out of that state of just joy and bliss, and I knew why it was called originally the Meditation Bangle.
Right.
But I looked at the clock and it had been 2.5 hours had passed, and it was just like, you know, effortless.
Right.
So as I was writing actually about my experience, I realized that I thought the bracelet hadn't done anything for me originally until I felt that. And of course the next morning when Karen comes in, I said, you cannot have this bracelet back. You know, I went from, I can't wait to give it back, to, sorry, you can't have it back. But what I realized as I was writing about the experience, that I had been making excuses for the last 6 months of why my meditations weren't great, morning or night. Because I was moving, because I was traveling, I was never in one place. But I realized it was a cop-out because I was in my home up north for 3 months.
Right.
But for some reason, I wasn't in my normal pattern of morning and evening meditation. Since I've been wearing it, prior to that discovery of going into that very blissful meditation, it occurred to me that I was meditating every morning and every night here on my visit for at least an hour to 2 hours, and I couldn't wait to get to the meditation gardens at SRF to meditate. Well, that's not normal behavior, you know, from someone to go for almost 6 months of being really sporadic.
So in other words, just prior to putting on the meditation bangle, you weren't meditating
I wasn't.
twice a day.
I wasn't.
And you didn't realize it, but when you put it on,
Right.
it had
I
started
kept saying
happening.
when Karen says, "You feeling anything?" I'm thinking, "No, I'm not feeling anything."
Right,
but
right,
I didn't realize that I was
Yeah.
actually shifting a pattern
Exactly.
back to a very positive pattern.
If I can interject there a little bit, I mean, that's a classic example. It can be with diet, it can be with outlook, but it's a classic example of when your vibratory threshold shifts in an upward level, you naturally gravitate towards higher vibratory activities
Right.
or interests.
Right.
And because you already have a background of studying meditation and trying to develop your concentration focus that way, it naturally kicked in the old habits. And that's kind of very normal, you know, very, very normal, and encouraging, you know, for people who want to use tools to shift their electrical, you know, magnetism for higher activity.
Well, the other thing I realized too, when I thought back, I'd mentioned briefly one day to, I believe, you and Karen, that the only thing I noticed that I had gone into Starbucks and I always drink coffee when I'm up north. I think it's nurturing. It's like something to do with it, you know, the weather maybe.
Yeah.
But then to try to break that, even when I'm here, it's very difficult. I walked into Starbucks, got in line, and then turned around and walked out.
Right.
And no reason, I just said, I don't want that. So I actually broke that pattern and haven't had a cup of coffee since. Since I arrived here, since I put the bracelet on. And not missed it, and not had a headache either, which I thought I would have, that withdrawal headache. But then something even more profound that, for me, that I felt happened, was I realized that I'm a very shallow, I've known this for a long time, I'm a very shallow breather, which builds up stress and toxins and anxiety and all kinds of things in life. So I have to consciously go, oh my gosh, I need to breathe. I mean, really deeply breathe. Which I suddenly realized I had been doing. I had been doing a lot of deep breathing instead of going, oh God, I gotta breathe, because something reminds me,
So
like I see a sign that said breathe, oh yeah, I'm not breathing.
So you're saying you noticed that you started to breathe very deeply while you were wearing the bangle, since you're wearing the bangle.
Right, without even a conscious...
But it took a few days to realize that was going on.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of a common pattern that's subliminal with breathing. A lot of people, recently especially, and it seems to happen in waves where people are saying the same thing again and again and they haven't met each other. A lot of people recently have been saying they're far less anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And we had 3 people saying that who hadn't conferred with each other, didn't even know each other. And then we had 3 people saying, my breathing is getting deeper. I'm noticing I'm breathing more deeply. And of course that's directly related to anxiety. A lot of people, when they get worried and anxious, they start breathing less deeply, down in the belly flow. And of course, the body's alarm systems go off and worry kicks in and everything else happens. And, so many people are unaware of the breath-mind relationship. But it's very exciting for me to hear that this could be another benefit pattern of the stimuli from the bangle.
Well, you can look at it as how healing the breath is.
Yeah.
So most of the planet is walking around in some kind of anxiety or fear, so they're breathing, here.
Yeah.
And so if it just does that, if we're suddenly find ourselves breathing, slowly, methodically, deeply, that's
well, not only
powerful.
that, give it a few weeks or months, but you actually completely radically change the habit of breathing that you have. And you could actually take the bangle off in a few months, and the continuum would, I think, at least go for quite a period of time, unless the karmic pattern overbears again. But that's an exciting thing. I'm not saying this works just while you're wearing the bangle. I think that definitely my experience and observations, when you start changing the patterns, they get impregnated into the deeper core of your being, as it were. And the bangle doesn't make so much difference. You just notice it more at the beginning. It's still a great aid and help, but there's patterns that are set in motion, and they become like grooves in a record and habituated. And if they're good ones, that's great.
Right.
But,
yeah, I can see where you could take it off for a while and then put it back on, and being able to integrate almost something else at a different level.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. And I actually went downstairs one evening, and Nick had the mints on the counter, and big. I was laughing about this one, and I slapped it on my arm and thought, holy cow, I could lift off with both of these on. Yeah. So I went from that state of, wait a minute, maybe I want to. I'll just have to hide them for sure under a longer sleeve shirt. So I'm very grateful.
Well, that's great, and thanks so much. I think that just about covers it all, huh?
It does for now.
Thank you so much.